So Bernie Sanders won the Wyoming caucus over the weekend with 56% of the vote. Now, as of right now, the delegate count says it's 7-7 between him and Hillary. But when they do the final tally, it will be 8-6 in favor of Bernie. There are some states where you're just going to have to accept the fact that the way they count the delegates is fucked up. Because what they do is, and this was the case, I think it was in Washington too, what they do is, because of stupid state rules, they make it so you count a certain number of the delegates today, and then later on they add the other delegates to the final count. But yes, that is misleading in terms of when people look at the delegate count number, they think that Hillary Clinton still has a bigger lead than she actually has. And we're all familiar with the superdelegate sleazy trick that CNN has been using, among others, where they count the superdelegates in the delegate count without even telling you that they're counting superdelegates. And you shouldn't even count superdelegates at all right now, because as we saw in 2008 and as we've seen previously in history, the superdelegates will almost certainly go to the person who actually gets the popular vote, will go to the person who actually, wins more pledged delegates. So that to put them in the count now is misleading. There's nothing else to say about that. All the people who are superdelegates who have pledged to Hillary, that's only contingent upon her actually winning. So when you put them in up front, it's incredibly misleading, as is putting the delegate count 7-7 right now. In reality, it will be 8-6. But he won 56% of the vote, like I said. And Bernie's won 8 of the last 9 elections. And he's won 7 in a row now. So obviously he should drop out because he has no chance. This is the sense, this is the feeling you get when you watch the mainstream media and you listen to those pundits and how they talk about it. Arizona feels like it was a while ago now. Remember when Bernie lost Arizona? Everybody, including myself, we were like, oh no. Now from here on out, he has to win 58% of the vote moving forward. 58% of the delegates he has to get moving forward. And then what has he done since then? He's won about 58% of the delegates. There were some states where he was, way more than that. 72% victory in this place, 80% victory in that place. So it's amazing, but he is absolutely surging. He is charging here. But there's an important point to bring up about that. Historically, when you have one candidate do really, really well for a while, their supporters get complacent and they get lazy. And they start to think, well, we won the last 7 in a row. We won 8 of the last 9. I guess we don't need to fight as hard. I guess we can, start popping the champagne and feel, declare victory a little bit here. That's kind of what Hillary did before that, after she went on her Southern state slaughterfest. But you have to fight against that. And you have to realize that it's not like, hey, Bernie won the last 7 and he won 8 of the last 9, and now he's even with her or something like that. No, he needs, from here on out, he still needs 58% of the vote, 58% of the delegates moving forward. So that means that at no point can he take his foot off the gas pedal, and at no point can his supporters do that. And of course, we have my state, New York, on April 19th, and I cannot tell you how massively depressed I'd be if my state was the death of Bernie Sanders' campaign. I probably wouldn't be able to sleep. That would drive me absolutely crazy. And as of right now, my job is to keep it real with you guys, so I'm going to tell you the facts. The polls show that Hillary Clinton is up anywhere from 10 points to 18 points in New York. Now, obviously, Bernie has shown that sometimes that doesn't matter because he's overcome bigger deficits. What was the deficit again? Like 30-point deficit on average when he came back in Michigan, I think it was. And then he won. That's unbelievable. So he's shown that he has the ability to override these, massive leads that she accumulates. But I don't want to rely on that. I want it to be that he's up already, and then you have him still beating the projections on top of that. Because I don't want to be nervous about it. I don't want to be anxious. I don't want to be on edge. And again, for those who think like, well, he'll overcome it anyway. Don't get too cocky, man, because sure, there are the examples of him overcoming it, but then there are more examples of him not overcoming it. In the southern states, she had these gigantic leads, and they held true. And if anything, she won by even more in the southern states. So now it's fair point to say we're not in the southern states anymore. That's right. But the overall point is sometimes the polls are the polls, and the polls are right. In fact, I tend to believe they're right way more often than they're not. In fact, I think by definition they are. So a 10 to 18 point gap, not good. But we need to see a surge in support for him again. We need to see people out there getting the word out. And New York has some other things going against him too, like it's a closed primary, and it's actually not just a closed primary. Some are calling it a super closed primary, which means that you can only vote in the Democratic primary if you're a registered Democrat, and you can only vote in the Democratic primary if you're a registered Democrat and you signed up before, what was it, like October something? So it's just, you can't just show up and register and then vote, which is fucked up because it is a weird form of voter suppression, and that shouldn't be the case, but that is the case. And Bernie always does better when you have these open primaries and you have people who are independents who can come in and vote for him. He gets the independent vote overwhelmingly over Hillary Clinton. So there are a bunch of things going against him, but, you know, he has to keep fighting. We have to keep fighting, and you got to try to get him over the edge, man. And then if he wins New York, oh my God, Hillary's campaign, they will collectively shit their pants all at once. You'll be able to hear it from other states. It'll just be, what is that? That's Hillary's campaign shitting themselves. That's what would happen. It's a scientific fact. I know it. Why? Because they already thought that at this point it'd be locked up. The nomination would be locked up. He's hanging on and he's fighting, and then if he were to win New York, it'd be the best thing ever. And then again, you have your moment of celebration, but then obviously California's got to win California by a wide margin too. So, I mean, this is the first time in a long time, by the way, that New York actually matters in an election. I remember, for the first time I was old enough to vote was for the Obama in the primary in 2008, and it was against Hillary. I actually, and at the time, I was more split. Okay, who do I want, Obama or Hillary? And I listened to all of them and went through all their policy positions. And Hillary, a week or 2 weeks before the New York primary, said some insanely hawkish shit about Iran. And Obama's like, oh, we should talk and we should do all these. And I'm like, okay, that guy's more reasonable. So I ended up voting for him. But by that time, he kind of already had the nomination locked up, where Hillary, I don't think it was mathematically possible for her to overcome him at that point, so our vote didn't mean much. And for so many elections prior to that, I wasn't able to vote in them, but so many elections prior to that, it was the same thing. By the time it got to New York, everything was already settled. Well, now that's not the case. Now it matters. So we're nervous, we're anxious, we're on the edge of our seats, and regardless of what happens, I need everybody to understand something. What Bernie Sanders has done is absolutely incredible. I mean, here we have a guy, let's be totally honest, he's super old. Okay, that's one strike against him in the mind of the general public. People, I don't know, that guy's kind of old. So that's one thing. He's also Jewish. There's still plenty of anti-Semitism in the country. And he's also a socialist. And he's also atheist, kind of. I know, Jewish atheist, it seems like a contradiction in terms, but people say, hey, I'm ethnically Jewish, culturally Jewish, but I'm an atheist. That's kind of what Bernie is, although he might say I'm a deist or whatever. But all these things, this isn't traditional. In the eyes and in the mind of the American public, that's foreign. But because of the power and the potency of his ideas and his philosophy, he's surging, and he's got a chance to be president of the United States of America. And when you have such an issues-based campaign, and you have millennials who are a generation that were raised on the internet, and all we care about is the issues and the data, well, now you see that this kind of mentality and this kind of campaign and this kind of politician has to be the future. Because you're not going to get millennials to turn out for those fake, cut-and-dried, classic politicians who just tell you what you want to hear, like Hillary Clinton. That era is dying. That era is going to be gone soon. So he's revolutionary in many ways, and no matter what happens, his campaign has already been a success because I think he's raised the collective political IQ of America in a way that I don't know if anybody else ever has, where he's talking about all the things that matter. He's talking about money in politics. He's talking about corruption and bribery. He's talking about imperialism. I mean, this is a guy who brought up the U.S. history of regime change in a debate when millions of people are watching. Guys, people don't know that history. They don't know that the U.S. just toppled governments in South America and put in dictators. As we said, we're bringing democracy to them. No. You overthrew the democratic regime and you put in the dictator. And most of the time it's because you just want to jack their natural resources. Keep it real. If you don't know what the banana wars are, go read about the banana wars. We literally toppled South American governments to jack their bananas because Chiquita Banana, the corporation, wanted it. So this is a guy who talks about that. He's raising the awareness. He's raising the IQ level. And this is something that's going to have an effect moving forward. And I know Bernie would agree with this, even if he doesn't win. And we all hope he does. But you have to take the collective energy and the support for Bernie and harness it in other ways to still get this change that we want to bring about. You know, the civil rights movement, they were all about civil disobedience. They were all about protesting and putting pressure on the government until they're basically forced to do something or else. Well, that's exactly what we need to do, even if Bernie doesn't get elected. And by the way, even if he does get elected, he's going to say, hey, you're not going anywhere. You're part of the solution too, and we all got to work together. So this is transformational, this is revolutionary, and it's interesting to see what happens moving forward here. But guys, the last state she won was fucking Arizona. He's won 7 in a row. He's won 8 of the last 9. And even on top of that, some of the previous caucuses have flipped because of weird rules and conventions/caucuses that happens after the fact. So, good googly moogly. What an unbelievable charge he's putting on here, and we hope it continues.